Hello, my name is Matthew, and about a week ago I finished reading Days Without End by Sebastian. This is more of a contemporary novel, and I was looking for something more contemporary after finishing The Adolescent by Dostoevsky, and this was on my shelf, unread, and it was fantastic. And it's an adventure story. It's a western. It's a war novel, and it really moves at a loping pace. The episodes, the set pieces really move along and make for some really gripping, fast uh, fast paced, page turning reading. And this is the story of Thomas McNulty, and he's narrating the story to us, and he has his own. It's written in dialect, and he was an Irish immigrant sent over here as a child, all alone, just completely alone in the world, in the great big America. And it almost begins to feel sort of like a picaresque novel, like a young child kind of scraping by. And eventually, very quickly, he meets another young boy named John Cole. They're in a little town, in a old mining town, and they're suspicious of one another at first, but very quickly they warm up to each other and become friends. And they're in this mining town, and this is the first really great set piece. There's a saloon that has a sign that says hiring young men or something like that. And they're extremely young, prepubescent. And they go into this saloon, and there's the proprietor, and they're talking, and he says, "Oh, you'll be perfect here." And they say, "Well, what's the job?" And he says, "Well, these miners that are out there mining all week, they don't get very many ladies, and there's no ladies in town. So we're gonna dress you two kids up in women's dresses, and the miners will come in and they'll pay for dances, and you're gonna be dressed up like women, uh, and the miners will dance with you." And the proprietor even says, "There's no funny business, nothing nefarious going on. You're just going to be boys dressed up as girls, so that the miners can have a nice little dance." And they do this, and it's kind of very strange, but they rather enjoy it. And the proprietor is a seemingly good person, and altogether it's just a strange experience. And eventually, they get old enough where they're having whiskers, and they can't pass themselves off as these ladies anymore. Um, and the proprietor, still being very good natured, says, "I wish you guys the best of luck, but this job isn't working anymore. We need to get, I don't know, anyway." So they end up joining the military. And in this novel, they really they cross travel all over America, the South, over the Midwest, the West Coast. They're up in the Northeast of the country, back in the South. Beautiful descriptions, evocative descriptions of the landscape and their adventures. But this book is also brutal and unflinching. It doesn't turn away from the atrocities and the horrible actions that took place in history, but also our characters, Tom, the narrator, our main character, and John, the terrible things that they did. And they they get tangled up in the Indian Wars. So there's the Indians in the Midwest. It's set in the mid 19th century in America, of course, and they're off shooting Indians. There's one just dreadful scene by order. They're ordered to do this. They're soldiers. They're given the direction, and they follow their orders. It's one horrible scene in the blanket of night. They're told to go into this encampment and kill all of the Indians. And Tom and John and the other soldiers, they go into this encampment, and they're using their swords or bayonets, and they're firing their guns. And Tom even mentions that no one's fighting back. They can hear the screams, blood-curdling screams, and when the smoke rises and the sun rises, they see that it's an encampment of women and children, and that the mature male Indians weren't even there. And it rattles Tom and John. Another aspect is another characteristic of this novel was the endurance that these soldiers go through. So days without food or days without water, traveling miles in the baking heat or the freezing cold. Stories of soldiers losing their limbs from frostbite, fingertips and toes and noses. There's a great flood scene. There's several wonderful set pieces in this book. Now, there's an aspect of this novel where I'm going to have to use profanity. So it's a warning. I apologize in advance. But the novel is going on, and we have our main character. We have years are going by, and we have his friend John, and he's telling us this story, and maybe 30 pages in, they're soldiers. They have their tents or whatever. They're in their fort, whatever it is, and Tom is talking to the reader. He's talking to us, and he's there with John. And it's the end of the day, and then Tom says, the sentence reads, it's not a direct quote, but basically it says, and then we fucked and went to bed. And so there's this reveal that Tom and John are lovers. And it's this sentence designed to be sensational. It's a sensationalized, blunt, gratuitous statement. We effed and went to bed. And one of the issues that I have with this novel, I think it's beautifully written. It's also very strangely written because it's written in this dialect of a young boy, very, very little education. We don't get the feeling that there's even books around to be read. We have mentions of the Bible occasionally. But it's written in dialect, sort of like a southern kind of dialect. And at the same time, he's mesmerizingly eloquent and has a wide variety of vocabulary, mixed in with mispronouncing words and having slang, and it's a jarring juxtaposition. Now, that phrase, we effed and went to bed, when we read the novel, and we basically spend our lives with these characters, Tom and John, we find out that they're not just lovers. They're in love, and they have a long, strong, loving relationship in a way that if someone was talking, they wouldn't use that kind of phrasing. And I think it's there to be a big shock factor because after that, this book is not laced with profanity. I think once or twice there's some profanity, but otherwise he's beautifully eloquent in this. Also, strangely, with a dialect. Now, they serve their terms in the military, and they go to New England, the New England area, and they get a house. And John decides that they should have a theater show where Tom will dress up as a woman, and they'll put on a little act, and the crowds will come in, and it's I imagine back like in the Shakespearean times when the men performed all the roles, and it's this respite. They're living this nice, quiet life. Tom is able to be himself. John is able to be himself. Through all of these adventures, I should say, there was rather like a villain during the Indian Wars, and it was a chief Indian. Terrible things happened on the Indian side, and also the soldiers. But as a result of this, the chief Indian's wife and mother, their children, had been killed by one of the soldiers, and the young Indian daughter had been taken away from the Indian, and Tom and John adopted the daughter. So while they're having this idyllic experience putting on a theater show, the young girl is in the show, and it seems if it just stopped there, it would have just been a nice, pleasant end. But the Civil War is brewing, and these men are soldiers, and they decide that they need to join the cause, join the Union, and go down and fight against the Confederacy. And they leave their daughter in good hands with a trusting neighbor. And again, they're thrown into war. This time, it's not a band of soldiers running around trying to shoot Indians. Now we have two armies fighting against each other. And Tom and John are now these experienced soldiers. They're in their mid-20s, late 20s, and they're seeing the soldiers around them, these teenagers, these kids, and just realizing how much experience they had. And there were soldiers from the time that they were in the Indian Wars, sergeants and generals and such, that came and joined, and we have these recurring characters coming back. All the while, as I was reading this, and now knowing that we have Tom and John, who are in love with each other, going back into this war, and I was so worried something was going to happen to John. Tom is narrating the story, so in that logic, you would imagine that he's the one that would survive. The story takes a different turn. The consequences of their actions in the past, dealing with these Indians and just the atrocities that they went through, it comes back. They end up barely escaping a really tough battle where they were prisoners of war, and almost manage to get back to a normal, quiet life. And then things start happening, and it gets more gripping and more exciting. And the relationship between Tom and John and the girl is dynamic and sensitive and wonderful. I love this book. I actually have, I think I have another one of Sebastian Barry's books that I haven't read. I don't know why I bought 2 or maybe 3 of these without reading them, but this is a great read. It does have this, I think, by design, a moment of shock value, which personally I don't think the book needed, but it was great. I loved it. So those are my thoughts on Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. I read it like a week ago, so I do apologize for not remembering all the details. Or anyway, let me know if you've read it. Let me know what you think about it if you had. And so thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.